That's why I'm so pro-Alberta and Albertan first, I would say, is because of the legacy that was passed on to it.
Patience is running thin. Jason Wilson, a 28-year-old rancher, hears it from all sides.
My neighbors are done. They don't think it's worth it. I think there's a lot of emotion right now too.
Do you think we will see a referendum on independence in the next 12 to 18 months?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, I guess they're going to have to pay attention to those Alberta rednecks now. Separation and independence from Canada continues to be the talk of the town in Alberta. The conversation seems to have gone mainstream, with every single news outlet in Canada having to cover it, whether they like it or not. Now, you know the government-paid media is going to try to put their pro-liberal bias on it. That won't come as a surprise to any of us who know who signs their paycheck. The CBC is the official government broadcaster, for those of you outside of Canada. These people receive hundreds of millions of dollars from the taxpayers to spew liberal propaganda. On their nightly show called The National, they recently published a video about the Alberta Independence movement. I say this to you as a full disclaimer that you can expect biased reporting and should take it all with a grain of salt.
In Alberta's ranchland, prices at the Innisfail cattle auction are way up.
$2.99, $2.50. Sold internet $6,200.
They've never been better. This cattle thing is on the move.
Danny Daines is part of the family-owned auction business established here in 1955. What do you think about all this talk about Alberta becoming a separate country?
Oh boy, now you got me on the spot here. I'm just kind of into the cattle thing here. I want Canada to stay together. True blue Canadian, our family. It means everything to be Canadian.
Leave it to the CBC to find the one Alberta rancher who's actually in support of us staying in this abusive relationship with Canada. He says being Canadian means everything. But what does that even mean? What is that everything he's referring to? Is it the billions of dollars Alberta's forced to send to the rest of Canada every year, even though 62% of Albertans recently voted against it? Is it the green agenda and net zero laws imposed on our industry that continue to damage our economic future? Is it the lack of representation we have in Alberta with significantly less members of parliament and senators per capita than Eastern Canada? Or is it the fact that regardless of how Alberta votes, elections are decided in Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa, despite the fact that Canada would not survive economically without Alberta? Tell me again, what is that everything?
Oh, here's big cows.
But the whiff of separation from Canada is being whipped up across rural Alberta. Referendum to stay in Canada or leave.
You're a proud Westerner.
Yes, I am. Proud Albertan.
I see that.
There is a sense that nothing's ever going to change.
Tim Hoven, a farmer and formerly part of Take Back Alberta, says the last election was one too many disappointments.
The voting bloc that is Canada is Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa. Whoever is in favor there is going to form the government. So to have any pro-Western government in Ottawa isn't going to happen because they have to appease to those Eastern voters. And I think people have finally realized for us to move forward, for us to have a better future, we might as well act on that and actually get out.
Alberta Conservatives were once sure they'd win the election, that Pierre Poilievre would easily topple a decade of Liberal left policies. When he didn't, and with the prospect of more Liberal governance, something popped. In cattle country, decades of resentments towards Eastern Canada resurfaced.
Something popped many decades ago. Y'all just weren't listening. The resentment isn't coming from Albertans towards the east. It's actually the other way around. And Albertans have simply had enough. The people of this province have been tired of the current situation for a century. From the 1950s and the Milch Cow campaign to the 1980s with Trudeau the Father and the National Energy Program. The desire for separation is nothing new here, and it isn't solely based on the results of one election. I do agree, however, that the Liberals winning again, after everything they've done to this country, was the event that opened the eyes of many Albertans, who were still putting their hopes on federal politicians to fix an unfixable system, which is rigged against Alberta and the West by design.
With the help of Alberta's Premier, Danielle Smith.
The federal government has taken hostile actions against Alberta and against the Constitution and against our right to develop our resources.
Announcing the day after the election, she'd loosen the rules, making it easier for groups like the Alberta Prosperity Project to gather support for a petition and potentially a referendum. Outside, the pushback.
The separatists are having a meeting inside the building, and we are demonstrating against separatism.
Do you think the movement is gaining strength here in Alberta to separate?
Not really. It's been around for years. No, they're like a bunch of little toddlers that are wanting to run away from home because they can't get their own way.
That's quite the contradiction there, lady. If it's just a group of people acting on emotion like toddlers because they can't get their own way, as you say, why has it been around for years then? I always find it ironic to hear people her age, who should know better, about the history of unfair treatment towards Alberta from Ottawa, really talking that way. To hear an Albertan actually defend the federal side, seriously, what's that about? Is it ignorance? Has she been consuming too much liberal propaganda? Is she a federal employee? Or does she genuinely not see a problem with the historically inequitable position Alberta's been in since it joined Confederation? Hard to say.
Western alienation is kind of bred in the bone in the prairies, fueled by a long-standing belief that equalization payments only go in one direction, and that Ottawa's heavy regulatory hand stifles the province's economy. A recent poll from Angus Reid shows a broad majority of Albertans would vote to stay in Canada, 60%. Those who would vote to leave or are leaning that way tops out at 36%.
Of course she would bring up the poll from 3 weeks ago that was showing support under 40%. Here's a much more recent poll showing support at 45%. This number before a full education campaign about Alberta independence takes place. Nice try though.
In Wainwright, at the first of the summer's charity barbecues, cheeseburgers are hot and politics just as spicy.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Like most Albertans, I feel like we've just supported the rest of the country long enough. Now it's time to look after ourselves.
I think it's a good idea. Yeah, I'm a redneck, so yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think it's economically good. We'll have control of our own pipelines and make our own decisions instead of being puppets to Ottawa.
But for others, separation is all sizzle, no beef.
I honestly don't think you'll get even close to the majority vote to separate in Alberta. There's lots of talk, but I don't think it'll happen.
The feeling of being ripped off is a very strong feeling, a very strong emotion.
Mayor Kevin Pugh warns it can accelerate.
I just don't want the sleeping masses to wake up one morning and say, like, holy smokes, this is real. This is happening.
Spoken like a true politician. God forbid the sleeping masses wake up and realize that Alberta would be much better off as an independent country than continuing to fund in perpetuity a country that hates their culture and way of life. No, we can't have the sleeping masses realizing that, eh, Mr. Mayor?
Patience is running thin. Jason Wilson, a 28-year-old rancher, hears it from all sides.
My neighbors are done. They don't think it's worth it. I think there's a lot of emotion right now too.
Do you think we will see a referendum on independence in the next 12 to 18 months?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Wilson's family came here in 1887. He's sixth generation on this land an hour east of Calgary, raising cattle and farming.
That's why I'm so pro-Alberta and an Albertan first, I would say, is because of the legacy that was passed on to me.
All right, thanks for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Special thanks to those of you who have donated to this project. It is much appreciated, and it helps me continue making videos. See you on the next one. Peace.